Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show where we take your stack of sources, extract those precious nuggets of knowledge and insight, and really help you get well-informed quickly. Today, we're embarking on a pretty fascinating intellectual journey. We're diving into an article called Is Jaybird a Concept? It's by Mir H.S. Quadri from the Lumini Notebook. And Quadri starts this piece in such a really disarming way. He talks about taking a brain health break that, well, it didn't exactly go to plan.
Doesn't unwind him at all. Right, just gave him more time to stress.
Exactly. So he decides, okay, back to work. And then one morning, for absolutely no deep reason, the idea of a jaybird just pops into his head.
Not one outside his window or anything, just the thought.
Just the thought. It wasn't calling, wasn't there, just the idea. It's a really human, sort of relatable entry point for what becomes, a complex philosophical look at things.
Absolutely. And what's so clever about Quadri's approach here, I think, is he isn't just trying to give us a definition of a concept, not straight away anyway. He's really inviting us on the journey with him, exploring, as he puts it, the mess of the question itself.
Yeah.
So this deep dive, it becomes more of a commentary on language, cognition, how we use these loose definitions maybe to get by. The jaybird is just this great starting point.
Like his examples, Pluto not being a planet anymore, or the sun orbiting the Earth until we realized it didn't. It really sets up that idea of fluidity right from the start, and he pulls you in immediately with this really intriguing experiment he mentions. He asked an AI to generate a jaybird using only abstract triangles.
Just triangles.
Yeah, and the result is that it was unmistakably bird-like, but also entirely removed from organic reality. You can almost picture this geometric bird, right?
And it immediately sparks that conceptual question.
It really does.
Yeah.
Makes you think, if an AI can do that with triangles, what does that say about our concept of bird? So the central question he lands on is a jaybird a concept? And he's quick to say, look, there's no single universally agreed upon answer in philosophy.
Right. He mentions everyone from Aristotle to Hobbes to Hegel has had a go at it, each with their own take, maybe adding, as Quadri kind of jokes, their own layer of confusion.
Yeah.
Exactly. So our goal today really is to unpack how Quadri develops this. Why does he bring in these philosophers in this order? Plato, Aristotle, Hobbes, Hegel. How does he build his argument, sort of brick by intellectual brick, showing us his own thought process to get to this nuanced understanding of concepts and how they tie into language and reality?
So it's not just about the definition, it's about the journey he takes to get there.
Precisely. We're following his intellectual steps.
Okay, so to really dig into this, where does Quadri kick off his exploration? What's the first building block?
He starts very classically, almost like Philosophy 101, as he says, with Plato.
The usual suspect.
The usual suspect, exactly. He uses Plato's theory of forms, this idea that everything in our physical world is basically an imperfect shadow or reflection of a perfect, unchanging idea or form that exists somewhere else, non-physically. So for Plato, any jaybird we see is just, an imperfect instance of the perfect ideal form of birdness. The real concept is out there, perfect and separate.
And it's interesting how he immediately frames Aristotle as the contrarian to Plato. Why is that contrast important right at the beginning for Quadri?
Well, Aristotle, who was Plato's student, but then, famously went his own way, he rejected those separate forms. For Aristotle, the universals, the shared properties like birdness, they exist within the actual objects. They're embedded, as Quadri puts it, in the feathers, the beak, the wings of every single bird you see.
Ah, okay. So not separate, but inherent.
Exactly. And Quadri highlights this disagreement right away because it sets up these two fundamentally different ways of thinking about where concepts even come from or reside.
And Quadri makes it clear this isn't just some dusty old debate, right? He says it's a fundamental difference in how we think about concepts, even now. He suggests that while Aristotle helps us categorize things based on shared features, which is useful.
Yeah, very useful for biology, for instance.
Right. But Quadri argues it doesn't fully account for the role of language and social agreement in shaping our understanding of concepts. And that feels like a crucial pivot point in Quadri's thinking, doesn't it? It shows where he's heading.
It really is. That's the moment Quadri starts gently pushing us towards the importance of language. He says, okay, the jaybird outside, it has universal bird traits, sure. Aristotle helps us see that. But the fact that we call it a jaybird, that specific name, that distinction from, say, a robin or a sparrow, that means we're participating in a shared linguistic and cultural framework.
Ah, okay. It's not passive observation. It's an active, collective naming process.
Precisely. And that act of naming, according to Quadri's developing argument, is central to forming the concept.
So Plato and Aristotle lay the groundwork, these two opposing views. Then Quadri makes this really interesting move to Thomas Hobbes. Why Hobbes? What does he bring to the table here?
Hobbes is pivotal for Quadri because he brings in this idea of concepts as social linguistic contracts. Hobbes is, of course, famous for his political social contract theory, but here Quadri applies that thinking to language and concepts. For Hobbes, fundamentally, a concept is a linguistic entity. It's made of words, definitions, without language, Hobbes argues. You don't have concepts, just raw sensory experiences.
With feelings and sensations.
Right, and what's really revealing here is Quadri adds a personal note. He says Hobbes's view felt very much in line with my own understanding on the matter. And then he adds, with a bit of self-awareness, my obvious bias for the philosophy of language aside.
Huh. So he's telling us his own leaning there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a great moment where you see Quadri not just presenting philosophers, but showing how their ideas resonate with his own developing thought process for this article.
Okay, so if we apply Hobbes's idea to the jaybird, the actual bird exists, flying around, doing its thing, whether we name it or not.
Yeah, biologically, it's there.
But the concept of jaybird only comes into being when you apply a name, a label. It's the term agreed upon within the linguistic community you belong to.
So what's the big implication of that? Why is the naming and the community aspect so key?
Well, it means a concept isn't just stuck in your head privately. It gets its meaning, its power, through collective agreement. Quadri uses a brilliant example. If, say, ornithologists tomorrow decide to redefine what counts as a jaybird based on new genetic data or something,
Right.
the concept of jaybird would actually change for us, even though the birds themselves wouldn't change physically overnight.
Ah, I see. The label shifts, so our understanding shifts.
Exactly. And this leads directly to what Quadri says is a crucial point to grasp. Concepts are not static or immutable. They are fluid, evolving.
And why is that fluidity so vital for him to establish here? Because it opens the door to understanding how our grasp of everything, justice, planet, family, even something seemingly simple like a jaybird, isn't fixed. It's constantly being negotiated and reshaped by us through language. And that sets up the next stage of his argument beautifully.
Okay, so this fluidity, this social agreement idea, brings Quadri to tackle something that might make people uncomfortable with Hobbes's view. Namely, the implication that animals, since they lack our kind of complex language, don't really have concepts.
Yeah.
Quadri says this discomfort often comes from confusing recognition with conceptualization. How does he unpack that?
Yeah, he wants to be really clear on this distinction. He uses a couple of great examples. First, vervet monkeys. They have distinct alarm calls, right? One for snakes, one for leopards, one for eagles. They definitely recognize different threats and react appropriately. It's specific.
Very specific, yeah.
But Quadri emphasizes there's no room for redefinition. Their response is functional, it's ingrained, it doesn't change culturally or over time in the way our concepts do. A snake is a snake is a snake for them. And then he talks about dogs. They form really strong emotional bonds. They recognize their owner's scent, voice, routine. It's complex behavior.
Absolutely. Anyone with a dog knows that.
For sure. Quadri acknowledges this complexity, signs of attachment, maybe even grief. But he argues that dogs don't have the linguistic tools to define or negotiate the nature of their relationships. They recognize you based on patterns and sensory input, but they don't have a negotiable, abstract concept of owner or friend in the way humans can discuss and redefine those terms.
So it's about the ability to abstract and renegotiate through language, which animals lack. So Quadri's drawing this sharp line. Recognition, he says, is stable, reactive, and functional. It's about spotting patterns, reacting to stimuli, like the monkey seeing a snake shape. Whereas conceptualization, at least in the human sense he's exploring, is fluid, abstract, and inherently social. It's about creating categories, negotiating their boundaries, redefining them all through language.
And he's quite firm on this. He explicitly pushes back against calling animal abilities proto-conceptual, insisting their interaction remains stable, reactive, and functional.
So he's really trying to isolate what's unique about human conceptualization, setting the stage for how these fluid concepts actually change.
Precisely. He's clearing the ground to bring in the mechanism of change.
Okay, so concepts are fluid, they're social, they're linguistic, and they're different from animal recognition. How do they actually change or evolve? This seems to be where Quadri masterfully brings in Hegel.
Exactly. Hegel provides the engine for that fluidity Hobbes introduced. Quadri introduces Hegel's idea that concepts, Begriff in German, aren't static things, but dynamic, evolving processes. They unfold through history, through culture, through collective consciousness, using that famous dialectical method: thesis, antithesis, synthesis.
Right, the dialectic. How does Quadri apply that specifically to our Jaybird example?
He explains it quite elegantly. You start with the initial understanding or biological category of the jaybird, that's your thesis. Then, this understanding encounters new information or challenges. Maybe new genetic findings change its classification, or maybe its cultural symbolism shifts. That's the antithesis, the contradiction or conflict.
Okay.
And this tension forces a resolution, leading to a new, richer, more complex understanding of the jaybird, the synthesis. But crucially, for Hegel, that synthesis just becomes the new thesis, ready for the next round. It's a continuous, ongoing process of refinement and evolution.
So it never really stops.
It never stops. It's perpetual becoming.
And Hegel connects this to his idea of Geist, this sort of collective mind or spirit, right? How does that fit into the evolution of concepts like Jaybird?
Yes, the Geist. For Hegel, our concepts aren't just changing in individual heads or even just within language. They're part of a much larger unfolding of reality itself. Reality is dynamic, it's evolving towards greater complexity and self-awareness, and our shared understanding, our concepts, are evolving right along with it as part of this Geist.
Wow, that's a big idea.
It's huge, and Quadri uses the perfect example, ex-planet Pluto.
Ah, yeah, good one.
Its reclassification wasn't just scientists changing a label. For Quadri, interpreting through Hegel, it isn't just a linguistic shift, but a part of the dialectical unfolding of human understanding. The concept of planet itself evolved because our knowledge, our place in the Geist's unfolding, evolved.
And Quadri specifically points out why he felt Hegel was necessary here. It wasn't just another philosopher to list.
No, he says it's crucial to know that for Hegel, concepts are about the movement of reality towards greater complexity and self-awareness.
And he even connected back to his own previous writing, mentioning articles on being, becoming, and happening, and even one called Why I Hate Tomatoes, using his own work to show this consistent thread in his thinking about what concepts do.
Right. It's a fascinating meta-commentary. He's showing us his own intellectual synthesis in action, how he's using these philosophical tools to build his case about the jaybird, linking it to his broader philosophical interests. It underlines the how of his argument development.
Okay, so we've got Hobbes giving us language and social agreement, and Hegel giving us this dynamic dialectical evolution tied to reality itself. Now, Quadri brings it all together with a really critical question he asks. Is the dialectic itself dependent on language? I mean, does that whole thesis, antithesis, synthesis engine need human language to run? This feels like the linchpin of his whole piece.
It absolutely is. And his answer is, well, it's very Quadri nuanced and carefully constructed. He fully acknowledges how central it is. How else, he asks, could we even frame these stages in words? How could we debate and negotiate the meaning of something like a jaybird?
Yeah, seems impossible without words.
Right. Language lets us externalize our thoughts, share them, and collectively refine our understanding. It's definitely the tool we use for the conscious human part of the dialectic.
But there's always a but, isn't there?
There's a but. He then argues that this evolution isn't just driven by us talking about things. It happens because reality itself is in a constant state of becoming. He points to dialectical movement that happened long before humans and language existed, like species evolution. The jaybird biologically evolved through processes of change and adaptation, a kind of natural dialectic, without anyone conceptualizing it in language.
Ah, okay, so the unfolding happens with or without us naming it. Where does language fit in then?
And this is Quadri's really profound concluding insight. Language doesn't create the dialectic, it reflects it, and crucially, it mediates it for us. Language allows humans to become conscious participants in this ongoing process. It gives us the tools to articulate the contradictions we observe or create and to work towards resolving them conceptually.
So we become aware of it and can actively shape it through words.
Exactly. He puts it very powerfully. Language integrates us, the human species, with the Geist in the most intimate manner possible. We not only get to witness, but also actively contribute to the dialectic using linguistic tools. It's about active participation.
And he delivers his final verdict on the relationship between language and dialectic in this really clear, structured way. He asks 3 questions. First, is the dialectic inherently linguistic? And his answer.
No, the underlying process exists independently.
Second, is our awareness of the dialectic possible without language?
His answer there is maybe. Perhaps some non-linguistic awareness is possible, he concedes.
But the third crucial question, without language, can we conceptualize, structure, and articulate our existence within an active contribution to the dialectic?
And the answer there is a resounding absolutely not. Language is indispensable for conscious understanding and participation.
Wow. That really ties together the whole journey, showing exactly how he integrated Hobbes and Hegel. It's very satisfying intellectual payoff, seeing how he built to that conclusion. So wrapping it all up, Quadri gives us these 5 key takeaways, which really capture the essence of his argument and the journey he took us on. First, yeah, concepts are social contracts built with language. Our Jaybird concept exists because we agreed on the label.
Right. Hobbes's contribution, refined.
Second, what makes them concepts, not just recognition, is their permeability to change. They can be redefined.
Unlike the vervet monkey's alarm call.
Exactly. Third, animals recognize functionally, but humans conceptualize and renegotiate using language.
The core distinction he worked hard to establish.
Fourth, concepts blend Hobbes's linguistic structure with Hegel's dynamic fluidity. Language gives the form, dialectic gives the motion.
The synthesis of the 2 main philosophical pillars he used.
And finally, his 5th point, which really brings it home. The dialectic is in reality itself, but language makes us active participants, not just observers.
Yeah, we get to consciously engage with the Geist through our concepts. And Quadri brings it back very nicely to the Jaybird itself. In the end, he says the Jaybird is both less and more than we think. It's less because, stripped of our labels, it's just an organism doing its thing.
It's just biology.
Just biology. But it's also more because as a concept, it represents the interaction between language, thought, and reality. It becomes the symbol of the very process Quadri's been exploring.
It perfectly shows why that seemingly random thought about a jaybird was actually the perfect starting point for him. It wasn't random at all in the end.
Not at all.
And Quadri leaves us with this final thought, really something to chew on. A jaybird will always be whatever it is, but as long as we keep thinking, naming, and redefining, it will also be something more, i.e. a concept in motion, just like us.
Which really prompts you, the listener, to think, doesn't it? How does exploring Quadri's thought process like this change how you see the everyday concepts you use? What other concepts in motion are shaping your world right now? And how might you be participating, maybe without even realizing it, in their constant evolution?